Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Arc podcast. Today's episode, we're going to be going through week 2 of the NFL, as Sunday is tomorrow. So we're going to be just talking about the games, seeing who we like, who we don't, as well as fantasy startups. So who you should start, maybe who you should be avoiding this week. And then in the future of this episode, at the end of it, we're going to be looking at players in a 10-man fantasy league that are available that you could be looking to snag up now before somebody else picks them up on the waiver wire. So if you do enjoy this content, do me a huge favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment down below your sleeper fantasy player that you think is going to pop here soon. So without further ado, let's get right onto it. So we're going to start just talking about Thursday's game. Of course, Packers played the Commanders. The Packers are just showing they're one of the most dominant teams of football right now. They, of course, just made that big splash trade to acquire Micah Parsons from the Cowboys, and realistically didn't give up too much to go get him. 2 firsts and Kenny Clark got the deal done. Now, I know other teams like the Eagles had offered more, but Jerry Jones wasn't going to trade him over to a division rival. So what I saw from this game that I really liked is it seems like Debo is legit. Debo is going to be a huge part of this offense, as he kind of fit the offensive scheme of the Commanders before they traded for him. They like to run a lot of screens. They like to run a lot of wildcat, etc. So a lot of those end around, those jet sweep type plays, and that's where Debo was used primarily in his entire career with the Niners. Jordan Love is he's dealing with kind of mediocre receivers right now. Matthew Golden still hasn't broken out quite yet, like that first round pick has showcased, but of course, it's week 2. Still think it's going to take some time. Jaden Reed is now out with an injury, so that might open up the field more for some other players, but I'll get into the Packers. And of course, Tucker Kraft himself had a phenomenal game. I want to talk about some Packers players later on in the video, just as they might be some players you could be looking to pick up. So tomorrow, Sunday, 10 a.m. starts. Giants-Cowboys start us off. This game, it could be a decently high-scoring game because both defenses don't really have great secondaries, as well as you saw the Eagles-Cowboys game, how that panned out to be. I think it would have been a little higher scoring had that lightning delay not occurred. So overall, I think the Cowboys end up winning this game because I just don't love what's going on with New York with their quarterback situation. I wish they had that more figured out up to this point. But I especially if Russ starts, this is over for the Giants. Like this, I think they need to go with either Jameis or Jackson Dart, throw them in there, just see what they can do. Me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Jackson Dart coming out of college. I just don't love what I saw from him being over at Ole Miss, just not necessarily having an explosive offense over there when you have all the offensive weapons in the world for an SEC school. Cowboy side, I think Dak's going to do Dak things, of course. When the run game is established, Dak plays really well, so I think they're going to go to Javonte Williams early. If he's an available player in the league, you got to make sure you're snagging him. He's honestly a really good flex player because not necessarily going to be a starting running back 1 or 2, especially if you have a league where you were able to get a James Cook, Jahmyr Gibbs combo or a Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson combo if you focused running back early. Kind of like I stated with my advice before was fantasy this year, you got to focus running back. But I think Javonte is a serviceable piece. In my league personally, I'm looking to kind of consolidate and upgrade. I have a lot of wide receiver depth. My wide receivers are, here I can pull them up right now just so we all see. Drake London, Egbuka, I have Zay Flowers, I have McLaurin, and I have Tedrow McMillan. So I feel like I can survive a little bit by consolidating 2 of those receivers and upgrading running back. I do have Jahmyr Gibbs and James Cook at running back, but my bench depth, I have RJ Harvey, Jalen Warren, so I'm kind of looking to upgrade those. But if you're someone like me and then you had a lot of receivers, I'd recommend going and maybe you can get Javonte Williams on the low because he would be a solid pickup. One thing that could disrupt this game would be the defensive front of the New York Giants. That Giants defense is sitting on my fantasy bench right now because I'm waiting for them to kind of pop. I think that they are going to be a dangerous defense come, give it like week 4, week 5. I mean, they're a tough defense for sure. Their secondary needs a little work, like I said before, but that defensive 7, if that gets into the backfield at all, that could be dangerous for Dak and Javonte Williams early on in this game. But I do say prediction-wise, I'll have the Cowboys 28-24, kind of flipping the script of them against the Eagles, them beating the Giants. Next game, Seahawks-Steelers. This game, it's a battle of 2 bad offensive lines. I like the running back committee better in Seattle than I do in Pittsburgh, with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Of course, other side, you have Gainwell and Jalen Warren. But overall, I think I give, on the offensive side of the ball, I give the slight edge to Seattle. But I think the strength of the defense, and this is going to be DK's kind of revenge game almost, so I think he's going to have a big week. DK for sure, and him and the Steelers are going to be on top against the Seahawks. I just think that Sam Darnold isn't the answer, and I think they overpaid for him. And with all that being said, with what they were able to accomplish against the Niners, which are injury-ridden, and they lost that game, I can't see them being able to beat out the Steelers with such a good defense and a average to above average offense. I mean, week 1, they put up 38 points. So you got to assume if they were to replicate that at all, then the Seahawks would be screwed. But of course, better defense than the Jets. The Seahawks have a better defense than the Jets. So overall, I'm going to give the edge to the Steelers in some sort of like, this might be a grind grit game of a 21-14. Similar to kind of an ugly battle between the Niners and the Seahawks. Same here with the Steelers-Seahawks as well. Players that I really like starting this week in this game. I think, like I said, DK Metcalf I think is huge. Somebody like a Jonnu Smith would be a nice start. And I think Jalen Warren is a bit of a shaky flex, but could be a serviceable option because I think they're going to go to him a little more this week as well. For Seattle, guys that I really like, honestly, there's not a lot. I guess Zach Charbonnet would be somebody I would be looking at if I'm struggling at that flex position. Especially if you're in like a 12-man where that depth is kind of gone, Charbonnet would be a pretty solid place. Of course, I just don't trust the longevity of Kenneth Walker. I think that he's just an injury-prone running back. Honestly, when he's on the field, he's good, but he's constantly dealing with injury, so I don't love that. Next game here, we have the Rams playing the Titans at 10 a.m. also, so the multi-start game. I think the Rams are going to manhandle the Titans. I like Cam Ward and what he's got going on over in Tennessee. I think they're a year away from being a year away. But I do like week 1. I liked what I saw out of Cam Ward against a tough Broncos defense. Now, of course, week 2, you got another tough defense in the Rams. But I think he's going to be focusing on getting that ball to Tony Pollard, getting that ball to Chiggy, and getting that ball out to Calvin Ridley as well. I never know how to pronounce. I call him Chiggy because it's like Chig Okonkwo or whatever, the Titan for the Titans. He was a sleeper pick in my fantasy that I have just kind of sitting on the bench behind Travis Kelce, waiting to see if him and Cam Ward were to kind of connect a little more than they have thus far. But yeah, I like the Rams. I think any offensive weapon for them, Kyron Williams, Puka, or Devontae, is a solid start. Now, the Titans, Calvin Ridley is a good start, of course. He's a start at flex. That is, a lot of these players, you talking about, is to be starting at flex. Of course, like the Puka, you start him at wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, wherever you have him at. Devontae, I would say that wide receiver 2 slot would be for him. Calvin Ridley, either wide receiver 2 or flex right there. Kyron Williams, I think he's a running back 1 or 2 in a league. And then Tony Pollard, honestly, serviceable player as well. I like that a lot, actually. And the Titans have a rookie receiver. I'm blanking on his name right now, but he had 6 receptions last week. So if that carries to a little more yardage, because of course you need a receiver too, he could be a serviceable player also, especially if you're in a league where you happen to have guys like Addison or Rashee Rice who are, both suspended, or you got an injury player such as a Kittle or, a Jaden Reed. You'd be looking at a replacement, and that rookie receiver for the Titans could be a serviceable play. Moving on to the next game, Bills Mafia playing in the Jets. I think that the Bills are going to manhandle here. I think they're going to prove that they're the best team in the NFL right now. Do they have the best roster? No, that was the Ravens. But they showed that they can compete with the top dogs, of course, as they always have in with the Bills-Ravens game last week. I think they're going to replicate that. And although the Jets had an offensive explosion this first week, I don't see that replicating against the Bills. I think it's going to be a bit of like a 28-14 kind of game. Bills take over. Keon Coleman's going to have a good game, I think. And then on the Jets side, I was actually kind of out on Garrett Wilson, starting him in fantasy. But after week 1, I think you have to take the risk in week 2, even if he doesn't necessarily pop. Same thing with Breece Hall. I think you got to start both of those guys, even against a tough defense like the Bills, right? Because you had, of course, even though you could say tough defense for the Bills all you want, the Ravens were able to put 40 on them. And Derrick Henry ran however he wanted. Now, of course, it's the difference of Derrick Henry versus Breece Hall. And the same thing with the offensive lines are different. But I still think that this Bills defense is a bit overrated, in my opinion. They're always like, in the regular season, they always say like, oh, they're going to, be this dominant defense and all that. But regular season or playoffs, you're seeing games where teams are putting up 35 or 40 on them. So are they really like that strong of a defense? So, I mean, in my opinion, I think it's smart to actually start them against the Jets because Justin Fields, even though he had a good week 1, I would still bet the house that Bills defense would contain him. And then if you can contain Garrett Wilson outside of him, they don't really have another receiver. That's, something I want to write home about. So overall, Bills dominate the Jets 28-14. I think it's going to be a pretty quick, easy outage right there. Patriots, Dolphins. If the Patriots don't manhandle the Dolphins, there's something going on. Stephon Diggs should have a great game, I would assume, because the defense of the Dolphins is terrible. If I'm managing a fantasy team, any fantasy league I have, the week that they're playing the Dolphins, 100% I'm starting those offensive skilled positions. For instance, this week, I'm not saying start Drake May per se, but maybe like Rashad Stevenson or the rookie running back over there. Then same thing with receivers. Of course, they just traded Polk over to the Saints, but you could be looking at like Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry might get in the end zone, somebody like that. I would start skilled positions for the Patriots if you have the space available because the Dolphins defense is atrocious. On the other side of things, I'm not sure the weather in New England this weekend, but the Dolphins play terribly when it's not 75 and sunny. And I can't assume that New England is going to be cold. Is going to be warm. It's saying that it's currently 73 right now, but tomorrow there's a 65% chance in thunderstorm and rain. If that's the case, then this is going to be a landslide by the Patriots, a team that practices outside in the rain when they need to. The Dolphins, though, don't, and they suck in cold weather. So I think the Dolphins, Achane is obviously a start, right? No matter what. Tyreek, I think he's got a lot going on outside of football. And even with the Dolphins himself, I don't like the start of Tyreek. I'm somebody that he's got his domestic case issue right now. And it just seems like his mind could be in another dimension right now, just with everything going on. He's not going to be really thinking about football. So with his mind being kind of elsewhere, I think it's smart to avoid starting him, especially when there's other positions, like I just said, the Stephon Diggs, or picking up that rookie wide receiver for the Titans, or even, Garrett Wilson or whatever it may be. Like I said, in my personal league, I have 5 receivers for reasons like this: depth, bye weeks, and then, of course, injury / a player's just out of it, not worth a start. He's going to be facing Christian Gonzalez. I mean, you can't assume he's going to have this phenomenal game. So what I would say is, overall, I'm starting every Patriots player I kind of can besides Drake May, just because Drake May so far hasn't been putting up huge numbers with him in the league. Do I think he can? Absolutely, he's capable of it. And if he's going to, it'll be against the Dolphins because the defense is terrible. But I just am going to avoid starting him at QB and starting any Dolphins player besides Achane. Now, of course, if you're forced into the position where you're like, I have to start either Tyreek or Waddle, okay, obviously you got to do what you got to do, but I would avoid them, me personally. I would try and sell those players at a higher value if you can, right? It's obviously easier said than done. Everyone's going to be like, oh, I don't want Tyreek. He hasn't had a good week thus far. But let's talk Jaguars-Bengals. Jaguars-Bengals start tomorrow at 10 a.m. I have a feeling, like, I want to say so bad that this is going to be like, I thought that the Bengals were going to start out hot week 1 and just go out there and ball and put up like 40 on the Browns. That didn't happen. They had a rough week 1. The offense looked awful. They're always like this, though. So if this is the week they pop, it's tough to say because you want to say yes. But realistically, they got extremely lucky. The Browns lost that game. The Bengals did not win. If I'm a Bengals fan, I am not happy with the way that we played week 1 and the way that that game turned out, because that was awful. It was very sloppy. Jamar barely touched the ball. With him being a player that people were drafting 1st through 3rd overall in a fantasy draft, that's disappointing for sure. Players I like in this game, ETN is obviously a phenomenal start. I think that makes a lot of sense. Trevor Lawrence could have a big game today too, or tomorrow too, where he's facing a Bengals defense that is, we didn't think this, but looks worse than they did last year. And then, of course, the Brian Thomas Jr.'s. And if you absolutely need to, Travis Hunter, but I don't love, until it's proven, I'm just against it right now. I'm somebody that, like, I don't love starting rookie wide receivers. I don't love starting rookie running backs. That's why in my league, Agbuka, week 1, I bit the bullet because I benched him and he had 2 touchdowns. That's something that it happened. I did, of course, I still won the week, but I didn't get points for Agbuka. That was a bit of a bummer. Overall, though, with this game, I think that the Jaguars win this, some like 28-27 game. It'll be very close, and I think the offense will bounce back a little for the Bengals. It just won't. They're not going to squeak out the win. I think the Jaguars' defense is better than the Bengals' defense, and I think the offense is clicked quicker than the Bengals, who are a team that typically takes about 2 to 3 weeks to kind of catch up with the flow of the NFL and the start of the season. So I have Jaguars over Bengals, 28-27 Jags. Let's move on to, I think this might be the worst game of the week. This is Niners Saints. This is going to be some like 12-7 game. It screams ugly. Spencer Rattler against Mac Jones. That's what we're talking about right now. Like, no Ayuk, Kittle on IR. Jawan Jennings is questionable. He'll probably play. The Saints just traded for Polk. They got Chris Olave. They have Kamara. Honestly, if you like, we clearly know Spencer Rattler is not the guy because he's got the weapons he needs to be somewhat successful, right? Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, Jawan Johnson is sitting over there. Like, there are decently exciting pieces here. Rashid Shaheed is over there also. And for Spencer Rattler not to be able to put up a 24, 28, 30-point game is pretty tough. So overall, I think that the Niners squeaked this game out. Mac Jones is going to have his Mac Jones game. He has it once a year, just like he did last year for the Jags. I think that this is the game that Mac Jones has like a 18-point fantasy week, but is able to prove, he still belongs in this league as a backup quarterback. especially playing the Saints defense that is like 75 years old average age. I don't love anything about the Saints, honestly, other than their skill positions, right? I think this offseason, obviously, the Saints are going to be one of the worst teams in football, so they're going to go out and draft a quarterback in the draft. Whether it's whether it's, somebody else, they're going to look at getting a QB. And then hopefully they can to turn the Saints around, really, they just need to get rid of all this old tied up money that they got. The Cameron Jordans, all that they have over there. It's just ugly for the Saints. But the Niners right now know better. Now, I just like the Niners a lot better, but I think it's going to be a really ugly game. Grind out 12-7, maybe 14-10, something like that. It's going to be really ugly. Not exciting game to watch. Next up game, Browns-Ravens. I think the way that the Browns played against the Bengals proves that the Ravens are going to go in and drop 40 on them. It's going to be 40-14, and it's going to be over really quick. Derrick Henry's going to have a solid, 100 yards on the ground with like 2 TDs or something like that. Lamar probably having a good game. Zay Flowers might be quiet just because, realistically, they're not going to need to throw the ball a lot. I think Derrick Henry's going to run all over them. So, honestly, I have Zay Flowers in my league, and right now he's my flex. I might switch that around and not start him this week. Of course, based off his performance in week 1, I have to carry that over to week 2 and start Zay Flowers. No way I'm benching him, but I would understand why some people might, because they're like, they might not air out the ball. They're going to focus the run because they're a run-heavy team. Now, focusing the run does open up the field, so hopefully Zay Flowers can just get in the end zone one time, maybe 4 catches for, 60 yards and a tud. I would be more than satisfied with that if I am managing him in fantasy. But yeah, I'm not starting anyone on the Browns. Maybe Samson. Njoku at tight end, I take that back. Njoku would be somebody I would start. Samson, if you absolutely need to, but overall, I would just avoid the Browns. The last game at 10 a.m. tomorrow is Bears-Lions. Now, this game, I kind of have the feeling, not as bad as the Saints-Niners game, but I think this is going to be an ugly game. I think it's going to be 17-14, because genuinely, I don't love the vibe over in Detroit. I've talked about that before. You lose the DC, you lose the OC. I think it's going to take at least a handful of weeks to get through that. And now on the flip side too, vibes are down for the Bears because they just choked that win against the Vikings. They allowed J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings to battle back, especially J.J. McCarthy throws a pick 6. I thought the game was over after that. Very next series, the Bears couldn't put points on the board after that. Crazy. That was embarrassing. Because you should have, after that pick 6, game should have been done. But it was the opposite. It almost felt as if the Vikings got the pick 6 because momentum was on their side for some reason. But overall, I think I want to say the Bears win this game. I think they absolutely need to win this game. This is a game for sure. It's honestly a bit of a must-win for both sides. Because realistically, right, the Lions, both teams are 0-1, and the Lions kind of need this win because of the vibes being so bad over there. You could be looking at Dan Campbell, job in jeopardy, because they have all the talent in the world on this roster, but it might just be coaching staff at this point. Now, do I fault him for that? Not necessarily. I mean, I don't love how he's always so trigger happy to go and 4th and 1, 4th and short, go for it constantly, but he gets caught up in the emotion of the game, I feel a lot, and I struggle with that as a fan. I want a coach that can kind of remain cool, calm, collected. The Bears, I think they're still figuring everything out with Ben Johnson. There were flashes in that game, though, that showed why Ben Johnson was going to help out Caleb Williams quite a lot. Because Caleb, if he was just reading his reads, He was serviceable. He was solid. The one issue I have is I don't think Ben Johnson necessarily unlocks a guy like Caleb Williams, because it feels very, like his ceiling with Ben Johnson is going to be Jared Goff, right? Go through your reads, find the easy pass to make, and just make the easy pass. Let's not do nothing flashy. Now, of course, at the same time, we're talking about a second-year quarterback who hasn't really proven yet that he can be that number one guy, that solidified, I am the quarterback kind of guy, like he was drafted to be. So I feel like it's a little bit of mixture. I think we're going to see a little bit of balance. I hope there's a point in the season where Ben Johnson kind of just says, screw it. Let's just let Caleb go out there and do Caleb things and just have him sling it. I want to see like a 40 attempt pass game from Caleb Williams, because I think that's going to, one, help his confidence a lot. And then two, maybe it'll unlock a lot of things that Ben Johnson wasn't able to do with Jared Goff that he'll be able to do with Caleb Williams. Next game is Colts-Broncos. This game here, Week 1 proved that it doesn't really show that the Broncos kind of need some time for that offense to kind of get fluid. I have been super adamant about the Broncos with they need a number one receiver. Cortland Sutton is cool, not great. I think that they should go talk to a team like Miami and go get Tyreek Hill. Or I think you should go talk to the Saints about a Chris Olave. Just seeing what it would cost to go get somebody like that. But I think there's a handful of teams that could do that, that need to do that. I think if you're the Broncos, though, right now, you're at your cheapest point with your quarterback. He's still on his rookie deal, so you got to take your swings now, right? You got to do the Brock Purdy thing and put so much around him that Bo Nix doesn't have to worry because he's so cheap. And then once you need to pay him, hopefully you'll have won a ring by then. Your defense is stacked, obviously. We all know that. But the offense struggled last week. So against the Colts that have a serviceable defense, I think that the Broncos will bounce back. I think Danny Dimes is going to have a regression week because it's, one, the Broncos defense, and two, Daniel Jones is destined for, I just think it's going to come where it's going to be like, he had such a super high with week 1 against the Dolphins, but then you're playing a stacked defense now in week 2. And I mean, who knows? Genuinely, like, I think he could be a serviceable start, Daniel Jones, if you have quarterback trouble there. If you're in the area where you're resorting between a guy like Caleb Williams or, Daniel Jones or even like a Bo Nix in that same mix, if you're somebody that's looking at that, maybe you do go with Daniel Jones because he had a good week 1. You just ride the hope. Same thing with like a Justin Fields. You kind of ride the hope and hope that he has another good week. But yeah, the Colts, they've got a ton of excitement over there. They've got a ton of ammo for Daniel Jones to throw to. Jonathan Taylor, and then of course, Alec Pierce. You have Michael Pittman, who had good week 1. Tyler Warren is sitting there, the rookie tight end, which I really like. And Daniel Jones was finding him week 1. So we could be talking about serviceable pieces for Daniel Jones to keep doing his thing. And if a rookie quarterback like Cam Ward is able to look good against a tough defense like the Broncos, then who says that Daniel Jones can't? I mean, that's all I'm getting at is like, he could be worth the risk. I do think that the Broncos squeak out this win. A 21-18 win is what I'll say. But it'll be close. It'll be close. Next up here, we have Panthers-Cardinals at 105. The Cardinals, I think, win this game. I think the Panthers really prove that they're not quite there. They're not quite ready to take a leap, to take a bound into competing for that top spot in division and competing for a playoff spot. I've been super high on Bryce Young, hoping that he was able to kind of take a good leap this year. But so far, we didn't see that in week 1. Cardinals side, they looked a lot better. That defense looks legit. The offense, they were able to actually get Marvin Harrison the ball. James Conner, of course, is going to be a high floor, low ceiling kind of player. So obviously solid fantasy start because he's going to be very consistent, giving you that anywhere from 12 to 18 range. And then if he gets in the end zone, maybe he gets you, an extra 6 on top of that. So I think the Cardinals do manhandle the Panthers. This is more of like a 21-7 kind of game. I still don't trust the offense of the Cardinals too much. I don't want to put all my eggs in that basket because realistically, it is the Cardinals, and I am not a big Kyler Murray guy. I don't love his gameplay. I don't think that he is that legit number one option. You guys have heard it here. I did say that I had a big, bold prediction that Mike McDaniel, the coach of the Dolphins, will be the offensive coordinator of the Cardinals. That's just a prediction that I have. I don't know why. I can just kind of picture it over there. I would love to actually see Mike McDaniels as the offensive coordinator for the Panthers. That would be exciting. Or even offensive coordinator of the the Colts or something like that, just to see what else he could do. But yeah, I think that the Cardinals win 21-7. It's going to be a little bit of a rough game, but hopefully Tedero McMillan gets in the end zone this Sunday. Next game, Eagles, Chiefs, repeat Super Bowl. This is going to be closer than the Super Bowl, I think, just because the defense of the Eagles does not look legit. It looks scary, especially the whole Jalen Carter debacle and all that. I'm not high on the Eagles this year. Of course, Saquon's going to do Saquon things. But I think the Chiefs win this game. I think it's like a 28-24 game. They prove, hey, even though you dominated us in the Super Bowl, you're not going to dominate us right now, and we're going to prove to y'all. I think Hollywood Brown is going to have a big game. Honestly, he's somebody I've been looking at. That's also why I've been trying to consolidate receiver, because I'm like, oh, Hollywood Brown is sitting there on our waiver wire right now, and I want to pick him up. I just haven't yet because I want to make a receiver trade and then grab him. So, Eagles, Chiefs, Hollywood Brown has a good game. Travis Kelce hopefully gets in the end zone because he's my tight end one right now. Did not have an impressive game week one, so it scares me. The only reason he was somewhat serviceable with that 12-point fantasy outing was because he got in the end zone. But in up to the third quarter, he had one catch for 12 yards or something like that. So that terrifies me about starting Travis Kelce. But I'm going to run it back. Hopefully he gets in the end zone again. We'll see. Falcons, Vikings. They're the night game for tomorrow. That should be actually a pretty decent game. I think the Michael Penix versus J.J. McCarthy should be interesting. I do think the Falcons win this game. I like Bijan Robinson. Everyone was right. I thought he was going to be a little overrated in fantasy, not being able to put up the points that he kind of is projected, but so far so good as of week one. Drake London scares me. Of course, he was questionable. He got injured in week one. I have him in fantasy, and I have been so tempted to bench him because I'm like, I don't know if he's going to be able to, one, if they're going to just kind of lay low on him just to give him some rest, and two, if he's going to re-aggravate that injury, and then he's going to be out. So if I am a Vikings fan, one, I think that they're going to get Justin Jefferson the ball a lot more than they did week one. I think although Jettas was on the surface showing that he was excited for JJ getting his first win and all that, he's going to get the ball. He's going to be wanting the ball. So I think if you're Justin Jefferson, you're managing him in your fantasy league, you got to start him, even though he had a poor week one outing. The Falcons, Bijan, obviously a good start. I think Kyle Pitts is actually a solid start for your tight end position. He's somebody that it's so frustrating because he should be so much better than he actually is. But I think this week he could get in the end zone because there's so many offensive weapons there. Of course, you got to worry about Darnell Mooney, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and even Penix. You got to worry about his feet, and you got to worry about his cannon of an arm. So I think that's where somebody like Kyle Pitts, who could be just catching easy slants, and he gives you a serviceable 4 catches for 30 yards, and then hopefully he gets in the end zone. That's a 12-point outing right there, or 13-point outing right there. That's something you're looking for in your tight end. So Monday has 2 games to end week one. Buccaneers, Texans at 4 o'clock. This game, I think, is going to be a decently high-scoring game of a 35-32 game. And I want to go with the Texans. I really do, but something just tells me the Buccaneers are going to ball out. Baker's going to have a great week. I think that Egbuka is going to hopefully find the end zone again, because this week I'm starting him. And then Mike Evans should have a resurgence game here soon where he's going to establish himself. He's probably going to hit another 1,000 yards this year. But yeah, and then Bucky's going to do Bucky things. Texans defense is not easy, though. They're tough. And the pass game could look a little tough, but I think that the Buccaneers squeak it out. They have a good game, and they show why they're a great offense. That's kind of all I really have to say about that. I need to see more out of the offensive side of the ball for the Texans before I start really deep diving into Texans ball. Last but not least, Chargers-Raiders. This is going to be a good game. This one is going to be a 28-21 game. Geno Smith has the ball with 40 seconds left to either win the game or send it into OT. I think Justin Herbert, after week 1, proved that he can possibly be the MVP this year if he continues it up. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be MVP. As you guys saw, I predicted Joe Burrow to be the MVP of the league. I think he's going to have a bounce back week this week. Hopefully, kind of carries that through and wins the MVP as I predicted. But Justin Herbert's looking like, he started dating Madison Beer, and look at him. He's balling now. Of course, it was in Brazil, that game. Take that with what you will about the field and all that. I know that there were... It's just a different environment overall. So I don't really know how to take that. I'm taking it with a grain of salt because they're NFL players. They're able to play in any stadium. But Chargers, Raiders here. Guys I like to start for the Raiders. I would say Jacoby Myers, I think, is a pretty obvious start. Brock Bowers is out for the week. I think you'd be looking at, Jacoby Myers is probably going to get the ball. Ashton Jeanty, until proven, I'm not starting him. I don't have him in my league. Of course, if you have to start him, you have a running back too that's open or something like that, start him. I just don't love him. I think he was definitely similar to what I thought about Bijan. I thought he was a little overrated, and because he's a rookie, he's unproven, whole 9 yards. Of course, Bijan proved me wrong. But Ashton Jeanty, he's been cool. Not great, cool. Chargers, Ladd McConkey, easy start. Quentin Johnson is somebody that I want to say that I want to start so bad, but I'm so scared he's going to come in there and have a dud. He's going to have a donut. He's going to have 4 drop balls, and it's just going to be back to square one. He fits in the same category as Kyle Pitts, where he should be so much better. If he had less drops, he would be so much better of a receiver. But he just drops the ball a lot. So yeah, that's something that I'm looking to... you could definitely start both of them. So let's go through and talk about players that a lot of these players are available in my 10-man league. Like I said, I wanted to talk about 10-man leagues. So players that are available. Let's just go through QB, for example. You could look to pick up Drake May and start him against Miami. Now, that's honestly if you don't really have a good option at QB. Other players that I genuinely think Geno Smith would be a pretty solid pickup and possible start. You'd be looking at him playing the Chargers. He looked good week 1. You kind of ride that flow there. So other than that, hopefully you got QBs elsewhere. If not, you're struggling for sure. Running backs with lots of potential. Trey Benson, Cardinals playing Carolina. He's available in our league. And I think Kenneth Gainwell also could be looking at getting the ball a little bit. As week 1, he had 7 attempts for 19 yards, 3 catches, 4 yards. You would hope that would be a little better. So Kenneth Gainwell could be somebody that you'd be looking at. With the Niners, Brian Robinson could be a serviceable player. He gets in the end zone against the Saints, which have a pretty rough defense, top to bottom overall. And then I don't know how to feel about Jerome Ford, because Jerome Ford, like, you want to feel decent about him because the running back committee, there is no clear cut number one. But then again, with that same point, on the flip side, even though Jerome could look to take it over, he hasn't thus far in his career. So what's saying that he's going to do that now? At wide receiver, like I talked about before, Hollywood Brown, if he's not available, I think that you should, or if he is available, you should definitely go pick him up. Quentin Johnston, also a player that you might look to go pick up. And same thing with Juju Smith-Schuster, another Chiefs receiver. Go look to pick him up. Juju week 1, he had 5 catches, 55 yards. I mean, 10.5 points right there in a full PPR league. At tight end, Jawan Johnson should be somebody that players, of course, the defense and the Niners still getting. He had 15 points in the first week as Spencer Rattler was just throwing him the ball. So that could be somebody that you'd be looking at putting in your league. Brendan Strange, I also think, is the same thing. He could be looking at, although he had I don't think he had a great, he had 4 catches for 59 yards actually. So not too bad week 1. If he gets in the end zone, kind of makes a lot of sense there. And then this Fannin Jr. kid, the kid for the rookie for the Browns, 13 fantasy points, 7 catches, 9 targets for 63 yards. That's pretty darn solid. So there's definitely, those are trending players for sure. And those would be more put in your flex. Defenses I like this week. I think the Rams is a pretty easy one. I like them. Rookie quarterback. He did play well against the Broncos, but Cardinals defense is something too I would be looking at. They're playing Carolina, and they played really well week 1. They kind of, although they only had 4 points in fantasy, they kind of shut down the Saints. So, and then kicker. Kickers kind of just pick up somebody that's just serviceable. Pinero just got picked up by the Niners. They're probably going to be kicking a lot of field goals. As I kind of stated before, I think it's going to be an ugly game where it is field goal, field goal, field goal, field goal. So, if it is 18-12 and Pinero has 6 field goals, that's what you're looking for right there. It is similar to like last year when the Dolphins played the Niners and the Dolphins won because their kicker kicked 6 field goals, or something like that, 6 or 7 field goals. So overall, those are the guys I would be looking to pick up. Trades, people that if you can go and kind of buy them on the low and pick them up. As I talked about before, I think if Tyreek Hill gets traded, he's somebody I would look to trade for because I think you can buy him. So if you can buy him on the low right now, I would go and get him. Again, focus running back also. Somebody like a Devon Achane, he's going to put up serviceable points. James Conner, low ceiling, high floor kind of player. Maybe you go pick him up. Honestly, some people in your league might be scared of Jamar and the T. Higgins right there, so you might look to go get them. I think, let's see, other players, like I talked about, Kyle Pitts could be serviceable as well. Debo, if you can, now Debo I would wait on because Debo has had 2 very good weeks, so I think that you could definitely wait and see if you can get him he has a dropped week or something like that. Maybe around bye week, but 22 points in week 1, 17 points in week 2. Debo he's balling. It doesn't look like Brock Bowers is going to start week 1 or week 2. I heard. I don't think he's going to play. Let's see here. He was limited participant in Saturday's practice and is listed as questionable for Monday's game versus the Chargers. So take that with what you will. Limited participant. I don't know. I don't think he's going to start, but he definitely could. Another player I would be looking to trade for, Nico Collins, could be a simple pickup. Of course, week 1, not a great week, only 3 catches for 25 yards. That's pretty darn rough, so maybe you can buy him low, especially if you have a plethora of running backs and other people need that. That's somebody I would be looking to swap with, is getting a Nico Collins because he's got extremely high upside. And then players I would be looking to avoid, Kenneth Walker for sure. I don't want him because he's injury prone. And Zach Charbonnet, there's a running back committee there now. Cooper Kupp, same thing. Injury prone, just not the same guy he once was. I mean, if you can throw a guy on IR that's available in your league, like if somebody dropped an Xavier Worthy or a Kittle or something like that, go ahead and pick those guys up. But Quinshawn Judkins is also a question mark for me on whether or not he's actually worth it, because he's going through all of his outside of football kind of stuff. So is he really going to play? But overall, I think that I've given you guys a handful of guys to go look at, go target. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. So this has been another Beyond the Arc episode. Do me a huge favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and again, comment your sleeper fantasy pick of the week. Mine this week, Hollywood Brown gets in the end zone. I think he has a pretty big game against the Eagles. Guys that I think are going to have a slump week, anyone on the Saints, anyone on the Niners besides the kicker. And then I think the Bengals kind of have another struggle week. I know that I predicted Joe Burrow to win MVP, but I just think they're going to need a couple weeks and then he's going to explode eventually. So without further ado, it's been another Beyond the Arc episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.